Storytelling is actually really powerful. We don't call this part of the service the children's story or children's time. We call it the time for all ages. Because guess what? Storytelling isn't just for kids. Storytelling is how we develop our identities. The stories we tell ourselves reflect our family background, our culture, our relationships, our experiences, our values. Our stories become who we are, and they influence our decision-making and our actions. Sharing our own stories helps us to feel seen and understood. Hearing other people's stories can give us insight into their experiences. It can help break down stereotypes, and it can help us foster compassion and action. Now, one part of faith development is learning about our UU ancestors. We hear the stories of Unitarian Universalists who fought against injustice, who helped people or animals, who made scientific discoveries, who wrote important pieces of literature, helped make laws. Hearing the stories of our UU ancestors helps us to develop an identity as Unitarian Universalist. It helps us to construct our own stories that include our UU values. It helps us to act when we aren't sure what to do. Today I have a story for you about one of our UU ancestors named John Cashin. And I hope that you will add John Cashin and his story to your UU identity. I hope that you will look to our shared history as UUs when being out in the world. So let me tell you John Cashin's story, and it goes like this. One day in Alabama in 1968, as farmers worked in their fields, a small airplane swooped into view. The farmers looked up wonderingly as papers fluttered from the plane and came swirling down all around them. The papers were flyers about the upcoming elections, flyers with the picture of an eagle and the names of the candidates the pilot of the airplane liked the best. That pilot was John L. Cashin. He hoped those farmers would vote for the candidates of the National Democratic Party, a political party that he founded to help African Americans run in Alabama's elections. He wanted the farmers and everyone else to know that these candidates, if elected, would use their positions in government to make life better and more fair for the farmers, their families, and all their neighbors. Like many of us, John Cashin held many different identities. He was not only a pilot, he was also a dentist, a Unitarian Universalist, a husband, and a father of 3 children. He himself had run for mayor in his town of Huntsville, Alabama. He didn't win, and later in his life he'd run for the governor of the state of Alabama, and he wouldn't win that election either. But then again, he hadn't expected to win. You see, in those days in Alabama, African Americans had little chance of winning public office. Even though about 1/3 of Alabama's people were Black, the Alabama state government had 0 elected officials who were African American. Very few Black people ran for office, and to be honest, very few Black people could even vote in elections. They were kept away by unfair laws, sometimes called Jim Crow laws, and by the threats of violence by white people who didn't want their Black neighbors to vote. So with little chance to win, why did John Cashin run for mayor and then for governor? Well, John was an activist who understood the power of public witness. And he had made a promise when he was 11 years old to do whatever he could to get Black people involved in the political process and to speak out against the injustices that kept them away. Every time John Cashin put his name on a ballot and his picture on election posters and flyers, he caught the dreams of other African Americans in Alabama. Campaign speeches gave him a chance to make some noise for justice and speak out against laws that were not fair. When John Cashin formed the National Democratic Party, he chose an eagle as its symbol, a well-known symbol of American freedom. With eagles printed all over their flyers and signs and posters, the National Democratic Party made sure even Black people who couldn't read could still vote for justice-loving candidates. They were the ones with the eagles by their names. Soon, African Americans in Alabama were running for sheriff, for city councils, for judgeships, and the National Democratic Party helped get many of them elected. Cashin didn't have to witness alone. His family, his Unitarian Universalist congregation in Huntsville, Alabama, and many other UUs and friends joined him. They came to his rallies, made their own speeches to support him, and helped him raise money to run for elections. Like John, they believed that to witness against the wrongs committed against African Americans was an important way to show their faith. Over time in Alabama, more African Americans voted. More African Americans ran for public office and won. And as more African American people became part of the Democratic and Republican parties, John Cashin's National Democratic Party was less important for public witness, and it was eventually dissolved. John Cashin died in 2011, but here's the thing. We can be a new generation witnessing for justice. John witnessed for the justice he wanted to see in his community and in our nation, in America where everyone's vote is counted. Every time we speak up against a wrong or support people who speak up for themselves, we are part of John Cashin's legacy.